Well, good morning, church. Good morning, church. Yeah. Happy Sunday to you all. Glad you're here on this real cool, breezy, cold morning. I see everybody's bundled up. But hopefully you saw Mark's cooling station out there. That was a real nice surprise. He came in with this fan to cool himself off with greeting people, which is kind of fun. Hey, my name is Jacob. I'm the Director of Youth Ministries here, and I have the honor and privilege of serving on staff, and just wanted to welcome you to our service this morning. If it's your first time, welcome. We are really glad you're here. Hopefully you got connected on some of those welcome tables in the back there. If not, you can catch them afterwards, and we'll have fellowship, coffee, snacks, all the goodies afterwards. Come hang out and chat with us. That's one of our favorite parts about Sunday mornings. Well, I got a few announcements to share with you. You may notice that Pastor Dan and Paige and his kids are not here. Today is Dan's birthday, which is kind of fun. Yeah, so you can shoot him a text or something. I'm sure he'd appreciate that, or a card or wherever you may do. But he is running a race out in Tahoe right now. They just like summit this huge mountain. I don't understand. It's crazy to me, but he loves it. So that's what he's doing today. So text him and check in, see how he's doing. A few things to share with you that are on our radar. We have the living room conversations, which are happening today after church. There is a pizza lunch happening at 11:30. And they'll be in room 5. So if you're interested in this living room conversation, this is a time where we as a church community can come together to talk about various topics that sometimes are light and sometimes are kind of heavy. Sometimes we've had these conversations on gun control or mental health. This week is on gender. So this is an opportunity where we can come together and hear one another's experiences, stories, and learn to communicate in a safe environment as well. So that's happening today at 11:30, and there will be childcare provided as well if that is something that you will be needing. The Women's Book Club is also meeting later this evening. The book that they're going to be reading is the Vindicating the Vixens, Revisiting Sexualized, Vilified, and Marginalized Women of the Bible. So if you haven't started reading that, I suppose you have a few hours until 5:30 where they meet. There's also a youth hike this evening. We're going to be going to Granite Beach and hiking to Beals Point. So if you are a teenager and you're like, oh yeah, I'll be down to go for a hike, come find me. We're going to be meeting here at 5:45, and that'll be a couple hours out on the trail. And next Friday, we have a kids' night out. So if you aren't on those kids' email lists, this is a good opportunity to come find me, and we'll add you on the kids' email list. But the kids' night out, this is a sweet opportunity for the kids to get away and come to the church and play and have fun, and for the parents to get away and have a night off as well. And the teens get to earn some money for them to go to camp, which is also just around the corner. But that is just about all of the announcements that I have. There is a Family Fifth Sunday next Sunday, and we've been asking for different sign-ups for dessert or a side dish. Several of you have already been signing up for those things, but there is a sign-up sheet on the back welcome table, so be sure to check that out if you're interested in bringing some chips or a side salad or potato salad or dessert that you make. Feel free to sign up, and it'll be back there. But that's just about all I have, so Matt and the worship team, come on up.
Thank you, Jacob. Good morning, everyone. As we worship together through song and through prayer and through scripture reading, I've got 3 points I want to just highlight to set the context for our morning. I'll try to be short, but these are good ones. First, we're going to build off Dan's sermon from last week, Psalm 121. We'll use that as our call to worship. That's the text Dan preached from on last Sunday. And then we're going to introduce a new song last week. That was a song taken from the very words of Psalm 121. And then if you were here last week, the power went out and it didn't go so well at the end of the service. But hopefully we're good. We're going to try that new song again based on Psalm 121. But one of the things that stood out to me last week as Dan was preaching through Psalm 121 is he highlighted the fact that this psalm mentions 4 times that God, Yahweh, watches over his people. That's emphasized 4 times in a short psalm. That's very significant. Yahweh watches over us. Clearly, the psalmist wants us to get that point if it's mentioned 4 times. Well, as Dan was talking about that, I was drawn back to Exodus chapter 3. a passage we highlight a lot as we worship together because it's a core passage for the entire scriptures, but especially the Old Testament, where Yahweh identifies himself as the God who sees the affliction of his people, who hears their cries, and who comes to be with them. And I've always appealed to Exodus 3 as we talk about God that way in our times of worship together. And yet this week, this is my third point, that book, Vindicating the Vixens, that the Women's Book Club is doing, I was taught a little bit about it from my wife this week as she's been reading through it. It's a fantastic book, an excellent book. And the story of Hagar is the one she shared with me this week. And I realized how wrong I was. It's not Exodus 3 in which God first identifies himself as the God who sees, hears, and comes to be with his people. It's the story of Hagar in Genesis chapter 16 where those three themes come together. I won't get into the details of Hagar's life. I'm already talking probably a little bit too much. But she goes through a very rough experience. Just say that. And she is cast out of the family she's been part of for many years. And she has a son, and she's crying, and there's a lot of pain and suffering in Hagar's life. And there's a couple different episodes, but God comes to her and meets her in the midst of her pain and suffering. And she chooses in response to name her son Ishmael. Ishmael means the God who hears. And then the whole theme of Hagar's story is grounded in the fact that she names God. She's the only character in the Bible who gives God a name, and it's a name that sticks. What's that name? The God who sees. So she names God as the God who sees. She names her son God who hears, referencing Yahweh as the God who hears. And then the whole story is about God coming to be with her in the midst of her pain. So those are three themes or three threads we're pulling together in our worship together this morning. We'll talk about Psalm 121 and use that as our foundation call to worship. And then in our corporate prayer together, you'll hear the theme of Hagar's story come out in our prayer, and we'll also use some of the scripture, her naming of God's scripture for part of our worship as well. Hope that makes sense. That explains why we're doing what we're doing this morning. If you feel comfortable doing so, I invite you to stand, but at any time you want to remain seated or sit down, you're welcome to sit down as well. But we'll join together in this call to worship, and I invite you to read the bolded text aloud, Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from Yahweh, the maker of heaven and earth. May Yahweh not let your foot slip. The one who watches over you does not slumber. Indeed, the one who watches over us will neither slumber nor sleep. May Yahweh watch over you. Yahweh is your shade at your right hand. May Yahweh keep us from all harm. Our God watches over our lives. May Yahweh watch over your coming and your going, both now and forevermore. I will lift my eyes to the hills from where my help comes. My help comes from the one who made heaven and earth. My feet will not be moved. I won't be moved. You're the sun by day and the moon when I walk through the night. I lift my eyes to the one who reigns with power on high, enthroned above it all, above it all. And what can I do but call on you?
You never sleep, you never slumber. You don't miss a thing, you are the keeper of my soul, the keeper of my soul. You never change, you never falter. You stay the same, you are the reason for my song, the reason for my song. I will lift my eyes to the hills from where my help comes. My help comes from the one who made heaven and earth. My feet will not be moved. I won't be moved. You're the sun by day and the moon when I walk through the night. I lift my eyes to the one who reigns with power on high, enthroned above it all, above it all. And what can I do but call on you? You never sleep, you never slumber. You don't miss a thing, you are the keeper of my soul, the keeper of my soul. You never change, you never falter. You stay the same, you are the reason for my song, the reason for my song. If I'm coming in, if I'm going out, you have seen me then, and you will see me now. If I'm rising up, if I'm going down, you have kept me then, you will keep me now. If I'm coming in, if I'm going out, you have seen me then, and you will see me now. If I'm rising up, if I'm going down, you have kept me then, and you will keep me now. You never sleep, you never slumber. You don't miss a thing, you are the reason for my soul, the keeper of my soul. You never change, you never falter. You stay the same, you are the reason for my song, the reason for my song, the reason for my song, the reason for my song.
Kids, thanks for being with us in the service. You're welcome to go back to Redeemer Kids now. Enjoy God in everyday life. As we continue in worship, we'll join in this corporate prayer. Again, I'm inviting you to read the bolded text when they show up on the screen. Our compassionate and protecting God. We look to Hagar, whose trust in you is worthy of imitation, and whose personal experience of you is our deepest need. Please hear us. Please see us. Please be near us. Like Hagar, we have experienced rejection, mistreatment, and for some, even abuse. Like Hagar, our tears flow because we are confused, desperate, scared, and for some, even hopeless. We wonder, do you see us? Do you see us? Are you near us? God, Hagar's life circumstances did not get easier after her experience of you. But she continued to trust you as the God who hears, sees, and draws near. So too, we acknowledge that sometimes you allow us to remain in difficult situations. Sometimes our feet slip. Sometimes we do experience harm. God, would you give us the grace to be like Hagar, to trust in you, the God who hears, the God who sees, the God who draws, who is near. Sorry. They say you're the answer, but I feel you bring up so many questions. They say that you're safe, but I've seen you take me to dangerous places. They say that you clean up a life, but I feel you calling me to the dirt. They say that you're so black and white, but here in the gray is where I met you first. Oh God, I feel you breaking me down. Oh God, I feel you breaking me down. They say your way's easy, but I've seen you pull me from so many comforts. They say that you'll bless me, but I have experienced you in the nothing. They say that you're on our side, but I see you loving my enemies. They argue that you're left or right, but your love is bigger than boxes like these. Oh God, I feel you breaking me down. 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 Sitting in the aftermath, in the wake of what has passed, took this pain to finally make it clear. I will lift my head and look again. In the midst of brokenness, it's all for naught if you don't meet me here. Sitting in the aftermath, in the wake of what has passed, took this pain to finally make it clear. I will lift my head and look again. In the midst of brokenness, it's all for naught if you don't meet me here. Oh God, I feel you Hagar gave this name to Yahweh, who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me, for she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Hagar, who hears the broken and the weary. I long to see the one who sees me. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. I'm calling on the God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. I know with you all things are possible. I'm calling on the God of David, who made a shepherd boy courageous. I may not face Goliath, but I've got my own giants. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were providing then, you are providing now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You moved in power then, God move in power now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were a healer then, you are a healer now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were a savior then, you are a savior now. You are the same God, you are the same God. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. Amen. You may have a seat. We continue in our worship. We're going to listen now to the scriptures read, and Karen Choate will be coming up to read that for us. Can we welcome her up?
This is from Psalms 122, 1 through 9. I rejoice with those who said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." Our feet are standing in your gates, Jerusalem. Jerusalem is built like a city that is closely compacted together. That is where the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, to praise the name of the Lord, according to the statutes given to Israel. There stand the thrones for judgment, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure. May there be peace within your walls and security within your citadels. For the sake of my family and friends, I will say, peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your prosperity.
Thank you, Karen. Sure, I'll keep it, unless you want to keep it. Okay. Can we give a hand clap to Karen? And also for our worship team, can we give them another clap too? Yeah. Thank you, guys. Well, it is my honor to welcome up our special guest speaker. Her name is Chrissy Kaetzel. She is the director of community missions. Missional serving communities, excuse me, I got it backwards, at Rockland Community Covenant. And she's been there the last 3 years, and she is a friend of Redeemer, and we are really glad you're here, and I'd like to welcome you up to give our sermon today. Warm welcome. Really excited for you.
Thank you. Well, yes, as Jacob said, my name is Chrissy Kaetzel. Sorry, I'm going to mess with your music stand here. I am just so honored to be with you all here this morning. I have heard many great things about this church and just have felt so welcomed already this morning, so thank you. Today, we are focusing on Psalm 122. I've been told that as a church, you're going through a series on the Psalms of Ascent. And I know that you're already a couple of weeks in, so I probably don't need to give much background, but since I'm a guest here, I'm just going to lay a bit of a foundation, so please just humor me for a moment. The Psalms of Ascent, right, were the Psalms 120 through 134, and they were typically recited or sung by Jewish pilgrims as they traveled up to Jerusalem, right? And there were 3 major occasions throughout the year that Jews were actually required or highly encouraged to go and make this pilgrimage journey, 3 times a year. So the Jewish people were very familiar with this journey, and they would sing these songs to pass the time, kind of like we would listen to the radio or play I Spy games on a long car ride, right? And so since Karen did a lovely reading of our passage already, I don't need to read through it, but if we actually want to just look at the text for a moment, what I noticed when I first read through this passage is that there is a central focus on the city of Jerusalem. And so as we are talking today, I want to look at Jerusalem, if we want to hop ahead to the slide that says Jerusalem. Jerusalem as the central focus. It was a place of communal worship. Jerusalem was the place where Jews would gather to worship God. And so for our purposes today, I want us to be thinking about our own spaces of communal worship. What can this psalm teach us about our own places of worship, our own communities of worship, the role of communal worship in our lives and our communities? So with this focus in mind, Let's dig in. Looking at verse 1, I rejoiced with those who said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Go forward, actually. Yes, there we go. So if I'm completely honest, this isn't always exactly my attitude on a Sunday morning. Maybe it's because of church responsibilities. I have to get up earlier than I have to do during the rest of the week, and I like my sleep. So I'll often be dragging myself out of bed, grumbling about how early it is. My attitude is far from delight. And yet I really have nothing to complain about. My commute, we look, is like 15 minutes. But, a commute nowadays from Galilee to Jerusalem, next one, is about a 2 to 3 hour bus ride from Galilee to Jerusalem. And in Jesus' time, traveling by foot, the journey would take a minimum of 2 to 3 days. And that is, if you look at this far picture, in the middle, it's kind of hard to see the white one, but there's actually like a white path going down the middle. That was a 2 to 3 day journey. But people didn't really like to take that route because it brought them through Samaria. There was like less nice parts of towns. It was considered a little more dangerous. And so most Jews would take either the green or the red route, go a very roundabout way to get to Jerusalem. And traveling this way, one could expect the journey would take a minimum of a week. So you're anticipating at least a week of travel, if not more, to just make the trip to Jerusalem. So I'm going to say I'm quite glad that I'm not a first century Jew, because if someone said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord, my response here would be, why? Do we have to go? Can't I just stay home? Like, honestly, for me, if I'm going to travel somewhere, I have to really want to go there. Because for me, travel often feels like more hassle than it's worth, especially now I have a toddler, and little humans just require so much extra stuff. And so just all the packing and planning in mind, for me, that just feels like a lot. And yet, the psalmist says that he leapt for joy when they said, let us go. And so I really want to ask, why? Why would he make this journey to Jerusalem? What was it about going to Jerusalem that made this trip feel worth it? What did the psalmist experience there that evoked this sense of joy? Eugene Peterson, in A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, he says that this line about the psalmist leaping for joy shouldn't surprise us, actually. Peterson notes that worship is the most popular thing that Christians do. In other words, going to church is pretty normal. Or at least it was when he wrote this book. I looked it up because I was like, that sounds weird to me. But in 2019. And so I don't know about this church's particular experience, but as someone who works in a church and talks with other people who work in churches, there has been a noticeable shift in church attendance since the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Pew Research Center, 1 in 5 U.S. adults say they attend religious services in person less often now than they did before the pandemic. Similarly, in an article put out by Gallup last summer, the pandemic has had a profound effect on U.S. society, and it continues to have an impact in some ways. Americans have been less likely to attend religious services over the past 3 years, and at this point, it does not appear that a church attendance will revert to pre-pandemic levels. These recent trends have added to the longer-term decline in religious participation that Gallup has documented over the past 2 decades. So while there are a lot of complexities and nuances to studies like these, mostly what I want to say is that it seems to me that church attendance has gone from normal to optional. And so for those of us who are here today, I really actually am curious as to why you're here. Like, what got you here this morning? COVID-19 gave us every excuse to stop doing church, and yet you've come back. So why go to church? What is it about this community, or what is it about the experience of worshiping God that keeps us coming back? As we dig into Psalm 122, I feel like the focus on Jerusalem reminds the traveler not just of their destination, but why they want to go there. This psalm is perfectly placed to encourage the weary traveler who's starting to maybe question if the journey is worth it. The psalm orients one towards joy, and then it spurs one on to continue the journey, reminding us of the purpose and the end goal, to reach Jerusalem and to worship God. So yes, we're going to dig into verse 3 here. Jerusalem, built like a city, closely compacted together. Sorry, go back just a second. I was like, that's kind of a weird detail, closely compacted together. Why even include that? What is this talking about? So I looked at other translations, and they weren't very helpful because it's kind of all the same language. Well-built city, firmly bound together, everything's close together. Okay, what? But then I found these other two translations, and they highlighted like a totally different aspect, and they seemed quite different from one another. And so I wanted to look at this today. Jerusalem, the next one, it's a well-built city. Its seamless walls cannot be breached. And then Jerusalem is built as a city where people come together. Those now seem like two entirely different verses, right? The first one, its seamless walls cannot be breached, kind of gives a sense of maybe safety or security that the travelers might have felt once they reached the walls, or were within the walls of Jerusalem. The second one really draws out this idea of people coming together, a sense of unity, right? The next verse mentions tribes coming from all over, people being called to gather in the city of Jerusalem. And so perhaps another way to understand this language of being closely compacted or bound together is that Jerusalem was a place where everything and everyone fits together in its proper place. And so the psalmist here isn't just complimenting the architectural design, but it's noting how Jerusalem provided a sense of safety and security, as well as a sense of belonging and unity. Okay, so now really quick, I do want to skip ahead to verse 5. And this talks about the thrones of justice or the thrones of judgment and the thrones of the house of David, right? And a commentary that I read for this noted that sometimes people would use these pilgrimages as an opportunity to bring unsettled disputes in like their little town. They would come to Jerusalem to bring it to a higher authority. And so the author says that the peace of the community depended on the establishment of justice. Pilgrimage is a journey in search of peace. So in addition to safety, security, unity, and belonging, Jerusalem perhaps also represented a place of peace. So I want us to take a step back for a moment and think about what this implies for our communities of worship today. The next slide. Jerusalem provided a sense of safety and security, as well as a sense of belonging, unity, and peace. Can the same things be said about our churches today? Do people experience a sense of safety, security, unity, belonging, peace? When I think about churches as a safe space, I maybe don't think physically like we were talking about with Jerusalem, but maybe emotionally, relationally. Is the church a space where people feel safe to be vulnerable and authentic? In Journey to Joy, Josh Moody, he talks about something called superficial friendliness, and it's this weird thing where people are outwardly seem happy and content, and yet internally are desperately longing for community and connection. How do churches break through this superficial friendliness? How do we create spaces where people feel they truly belong? Where people come together with a sense of unity? Is the church a place where people truly experience peace? Where we are led to place our hope in God's justice that ultimately restores all things and sets things right? Safety, unity, belonging, and peace. These are things that drew people to Jerusalem. And so I wonder if these might be things that would draw people to participate in church community today. Now we can go back to verse 4, and there's a couple things that I want to draw from this verse. So that is where the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, to praise the name of the Lord according to the statute given to Israel. According to the statute given to Israel. Why go to Jerusalem to worship God? Because that's what God commanded Israel to do. Earlier, I maybe suggested that perhaps some of us still show up on Sundays out of obligation or habit or whatever, right? Like, you go to church because that's what all good Christians are supposed to do, right? I grew up in a Christian home. That's how it was. Going to church on Sundays was just what we did. And even on vacation, my parents either tried to avoid being away on a Sunday, or we would always find a church to go to. And so, while there's a part of me that feels like a rebellious teenager who wants to push back against this idea of going to church just because God says so, I honestly believe that showing up is half the work. Along Obedience, Eugene Peterson, again, says that worship is an act that develops feelings for God, not a feeling for God that is expressed in an act of worship. In other words, regardless how we feel about going to church, regardless of our attitude on a given Sunday morning, simply by showing up to worship, we open ourselves to the opportunity to experience and encounter God in community with others. The second thing that I want to draw from verse 4 is actually looking at the Message version. So the city to which the tribes ascend, all God's tribes go up to worship, to give thanks to the name of God. This is what it means to be Israel. This is what it means to be Israel. As I read this, it reminded me or made me think that perhaps communal worship reinforces a communal identity. And so I mentioned that there were 3 times a year that the Jews were encouraged to make this journey, and that was for Passover, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Tabernacles. I don't want to get into too much detail around those, but Passover leading into the Exodus, Feast of Weeks, it's a celebration of like the first fruits of the harvest, and the Feast of Tabernacles commemorating the Israelites' journey in the desert for 40 years. And so these are significant celebrations that reinforce Israel's communal identity. Jews who were scattered all throughout the Greco-Roman world would come to Jerusalem to be reminded that they too were part of the Israelite community. They too were a part of God's people. And so just as these pilgrimages to Jerusalem served to draw scattered Jews back into community, I believe that participation in communal worship today may serve to remind isolated believers that they too are part of a larger community. To give thanks to the name of God, this is what it means to be Israel. This is what it means to be God's people today. to gather for worship, and as a community to give thanks and to praise his name. Finally, I want us to look at verses 6 through 9. And this section is focused on wishing or praying for Jerusalem's well-being. And I actually really liked how they were translated in the Erdman's New International Commentary. So I have that version up here for us. Ask well-being for Jerusalem. May the ones who love you be at ease. May well-being be in your walls, tranquility in your towers. For the sake of my relatives and my companions, I will speak well-being within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek the good for you. And so the commentator Nancy DeClassy Walford here about this section writes that the well-being of Jerusalem guaranteed the well-being of God's people. In other words, the well-being of the Jewish community was dependent on the well-being of Jerusalem. And so again, I must ask, can we say this is true of our churches today? Is the well-being of our communities dependent on the well-being of our churches? What impact do churches have on the well-being of the surrounding community? I've heard this a few times recently, and I don't have a proper reference for it, and I apologize if I butcher the quote, but basically what I'm getting at here is if your church closed its doors tomorrow, would anyone in the neighborhood care? Would your community notice? As director of missional serving communities over in Rockland, it is my heart's desire to see the church play a vital role in the health and well-being of our surrounding community. And trust me, we don't have it all figured out. We're not even close. But I believe that in the church's potential to pour into the life of our community. And so, as the psalmist here says, to pray for Jerusalem's well-being for the sake of the larger community, we too ought to be praying for the health of our churches, praying that our churches would be places of health, healing, and transformation, praying that our churches would contribute to the health and well-being of our surrounding community. Psalm 122 gives us a beautiful image of Jerusalem as a place of safety, belonging, unity, and peace. This place of communal worship was vital to the well-being of the community at large. So why make the journey to Jerusalem? Why even bother going to church? Why participate in communal worship? Just as Jerusalem, the place of communal worship, was vital to the well-being of the community, so communal worship itself is vital to our individual health and well-being. I'd like to propose here that worship, communal worship, should not simply be considered normal, nor is it optional. It is essential. Communal worship is essential because in a world of superficial friendliness, where people are longing for community and connection, communal worship provides a space where people can feel safe, can feel like they belong, can feel a sense of unity and peace. Communal worship is essential because it reminds us that we are part of a larger community. Communal worship is essential because it provides us regular opportunities to experience and encounter God in community with others. One final quote from Eugene Peterson here. Worship does not satisfy our hunger for God. It whets our appetite. Our need for God is not taken care of by engaging in worship. It deepens it. Communal worship is essential to our personal well-being and to the well-being of the community because it deepens our hunger for God. When our churches provide a space where people feel a sense of safety, belonging, unity, and peace, when people are given the opportunity to experience God in community and are reminded that they are not alone, when our churches bring health, healing, and transformation to the surrounding community, it gives us a glimpse of the kingdom, and it deepens our longing to see more of God at work in our lives and in our communities. This is what brings me joy. This is what gets me excited. This is what motivates me to keep going and to keep showing up. This is what makes the journey worth it. And so this is what I hope we can come away with this morning, that this psalm would encourage and inspire us to stay on the spiritual journey, that it would challenge us to keep showing up, to commit ourselves to communal worship, because it's not only vital to our own well-being, but the well-being of the community depends on it. Would you pray with me this morning? God, I thank you for this church, for this group of people who have chosen to gather to worship you and to praise your name. God, I pray that this would be a community where people feel a sense of safety, belonging, unity, and peace. God, would you pour into the health of this church that it might play a vital role in the health of this community? As we gather here this morning and experience your presence in our midst, would you instill in us a deeper desire to see you at work in our lives, and in our community? Lord, would our time spent worshiping you this morning deepen our hunger for you? Amen.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. Can we thank her together? We're going to move into the climax of our service, which is the taking of the Lord's Supper together. And as we were just shared with from Psalm 122, corporate worship, the focus on safety, belonging, unity, peace, communal identity, and deepening our hunger for God. All of that is true of the Lord's Supper, which is why historically the church has gathered to partake of the body and blood of Christ together, to remember who we are, to remember whose we are, to remember that nothing can separate us from the love of our God. So as we bring our service to a close, we will join together in communion. I guess I'll play. I didn't think through this part, but I will play the piano as you just walk forward and take the bread and take a cup of juice and just take it back to your seat. And as you feel led, take it on your own time, and then we'll close together in a song. If you feel more comfortable going toward the back, there is a table in the lobby as well. Okay? And I'll uncover this and we can walk up. invite you to stand if you feel comfortable doing so. We'll sing, "Oh, Praise the Name." I cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. His body bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone. Messiah stood, and all alone. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord, our God. Then on the third at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh, trampled death, where is your sting? The angels roar for Christ the King. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord, our God. He shall return in robes of white, the blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints, my gaze transfixed on Jesus' face. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord, our God. Oh Lord, our God. Oh Lord, our God.
All right, and now receive this benediction. I kind of took some creative liberties and adapted the end of the psalm for this church. So, I pray for the peace of Redeemer Covenant Church. May those who love this church feel secure. May there be peace within your walls and a sense of safety within your community. For the sake of this gathering of family and friends, I pray peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I pray for your flourishing. Amen.